in stride has been a great skill set that I didn't know I had developed over time.
Mm-hmm. So now you're on the other side of things, having gone through, let's say, the fire and set this all up. Looking back, do you regret going to school to be an actress first? Like, if you could do it all over again, would you still choose that same career path?
Yeah. I mean, I honestly would not know who I would be without that. Mm-hmm. I think that, all the training that I did as an actor was just as important for me as a person and my own personal development, because I came from, I come from a very, more or less sheltered background. My family is, very like conservative Christian, like non-denominational. So they don't like follow any particular church. But they sent me to like tiny private schools, and I was always part of like a community, like this little community of people. And I obviously had friends outside, and I did dance and I did extracurriculars, and, I went to a public school for high school, but I don't think that I had really given myself the time to know who I am and accept my weaknesses and my strengths, and, allowed myself to even know what I wanted really for myself over time. I wanted approval so badly from people because I didn't even know what I wanted. So if other people were approving of me, at least I knew I was doing something right. Mm-hmm. And so I think being an actor was really huge in my development as a human being. And I think it gave me a thirst for people who are different from me, like people who come from different backgrounds, from different parts of the world, from different ideologies. I'm really fascinated by who we are as humans and what brings us together and what makes us all unique. And I think that was part of my attraction to coming to New York City, is like I knew I wouldn't be able to travel, so I could be in a really diverse city. And since starting my new job, as I mentioned, my company is incredibly diverse. And so one of my favorite things is when, my team, instead of actually getting work done, we start talking about like, what are the dating practices? Like, what do we call we literally made like a table for like the different stages of dating, like across like our different backgrounds, and like what we call it and like what the rules are for it and stuff like that. And so, and then getting to make things with people who are so different from me, and like having that common goal of like solving problems together has been really, really enriching. And so even parts that are, like other people find boring, like I'm finding delightful things every day, and really loving it. And I think that was the difference, is like I thought I would meet a lot of really unique people in acting, and like I kind of did, but it wasn't the same, because it's so much focused on like who you are and the scene work that you're doing right there, and like maybe the reason why you're fighting the acting coach who's like trying to direct you to make the scene good, and it's less about like who we are and connecting with people and stuff. Mm-hmm. So, yeah.
So do you ever get approached by other people for advice? And if not, what advice would you give, let's say, another actress who is much like where you were, kind of at the end of doing the acting gigs and hitting their head against the wall and wants to make a change?
Yeah. I actually, like, okay, so this, I might take like an extra turn to get to answer you. And like, if I get too distracted, put me back on track.
Excellent.
Cause what you said reminded me, like, so part of the reason why I want to get into developer advocacy is because while I was learning this, it felt like I was intruding in this world where they expected you to already be like fully versed. And if you're like reading documentation, it's because you're learning like this new version, but it's a field that you've been in this whole time. So like, you know everything they're talking about. And when you're first jumping in, you know, I can juggle a couple technical terms that I don't know and kind of piece things together with context. But by the end of the article, like, especially with the ADD that I have, like, I could not focus. Like, I could not, like, hold everything, and I just kind of zoned out. And there was like all these holes missing where I couldn't figure out, but like, what about this situation? What about this situation? And like, people who are used to coding already know that, but someone who's coming into it, like, it's not obvious, and there's nothing written down for them to see it and find it. And I would be on the phone with my dad and my little brother, who were both learning to code for their own reasons. They were learning Python and I was learning JavaScript, but they would start telling me things, and I'm like, that is exactly what I'm going through now. And like, you're highly technical, so like, this isn't just like, I'm not smart enough or I'm like too late in the game. Like, if you're also going through the exact same frustration I have. And it reminded me that like, it's made me very aware that like, as tech continues to grow and the need for developers is only going to continue to grow, because we are going to automate like everything in our lives, and we're going to put tech everywhere, and someone, you know, and the need for developers is only going to grow. And I feel the way that the industry is set up right now is not necessarily very welcoming to all these new people they're going to be coming from career changes and to like fill those needs. And it's not set up for people to like dive in, and even if they're really intelligent. And so I got really frustrated, and I wanted to make that transition easier for people. So like, even learning new technology sometimes is really hard if the documentation is poor. And I think that's part of the reason why I was drawn to developer advocacy, because like, if someone's learning a new technology and they have questions, like, I'm the one in advance being like, okay, that's not going to make sense to someone out of context, and that's not going to make sense, and we should rewrite it this way. And like, this is a better way for someone to learn. Like, I would want to learn this technology this way. I'm going to build this tutorial. And I started having a passion for that. And so that's why I'm really attracted to having a career that will go into that, as I feel more confident in my ability to help people out as well. And that's why I still give talks, even though I've like only been coding for a year. And because there are people who are, even at meetups, there are people who are less experienced than I am. And so my talks apply to them. So if anyone is like at the end of the rope, I wouldn't necessarily say like, you know, you have to go into coding, obviously, because everyone has different strengths. But I think it's really like, what are things that you do every day? Like, so like, I play Candy Crush, and I also play like Spider Solitaire, and like, I was like, the games that I like to play are always solving puzzles. Like, clearly I like to solve puzzles. And so, and look around you as people are doing cool things in their lives, and like, ask them like, do you mind, hey friend, do you mind, if I ask you like kind of what your experience is like in this career? I do think that tech is a great way to go in, because even if you're not, wanting to be a coder, there are plenty of roles in tech that aren't just the actual developers. Chloe pointed out once, and she's 100% correct, that like, if you're a stage manager or have stage manager, like, some background, you would make a great product manager or project manager. You would be great at that because you are used to organizing people and like having the whole picture and breaking it down into chunks, and like, you know, like stage managers or ADs on, if you're in film, are the ones who are making the whole show run. And, you know, there's a need for great management in tech. There's such a need for great management in tech, because so often like developers are promoted into management. They have no management experience. Like, it's the death of startups to like not have good managers. So, you know, maybe you're not interested in sitting at a computer all day, like writing code or solving puzzles, but like, you're really good at being organized and like keeping other people organized. And you know how to like motivate people or talk to people in a way that like keeps them on track, but also doesn't make them feel micromanaged. Like that's really important. And the tech world has an endless need for that. So I would say, look at the things that you're good at or the things that you enjoy doing. And there are roles out there. I don't know how people find their normal jobs. Like, I've never understood how people find normal jobs, and find careers in places where I'm like, how? Like, what made you, realize that you wanted to be a product owner at a tech company? Or how did you even know that was a thing? But I would say that, especially if someone has gone through a career change, reach out to them and ask them about that. Because maybe that career change isn't necessarily for you, but the process that they went through could be very similar to what you'll want to do. And I would say, really the decision maker for me to stop acting was I realized there were so many things I wanted for my life that I couldn't have because I was sacrificing them to pursue this one dream. So in reality, I had so many dreams that I was killing for one dream. And I was like, do I give up on this one dream and have 8? Or do I hold stubbornly onto this one and just have a life that it's not what I want? I want to, I want to go home. And if something comes up, I want to be able to go home and I want to be able to pay for it. I don't want my parents to have to buy my plane ticket home to Christmas every year. I want a savings so that I'm 30, I'm going to need to start seeing doctors more. And I want to be able to get good health care and not just put up with stuff. I was raised by 2 parents who worked in hospitals. I was used to just going to the hospital for anything and everything. And and I looked around my life and it was just I'm putting up with so much and this isn't what I want. And what do I want for my life? Aside from my career, what do I want for my life? And when I saw the picture of what I wanted and realized that I would never have that if I held on to this one particular dream, it was a no-brainer. It wasn't giving me the joy and the happiness that I thought that I would have. And my life ended up being just as boring and monotonous as the office jobs that I was afraid of, as a kid. And I was like, okay, so maybe the office thing is not what's actually scary. It's the lifestyle that you trap yourself into. So,
Throughout your journey, what would you say has been the best advice you've ever received?
Okay, so the one thing it's just the first thing that popped in my head, and which I believe is always just that's the answer. So it was actually acting related. Right out of college, when I graduated, I got accepted into this summer training program in Connecticut at the Eugene O'Neill Theater Center. And they do, every summer, they workshop plays and musicals. They do a bunch of different things. There's puppetry and cabarets and stuff like that. But the particular time period that I would be there for is when they are workshopping Broadway-bound plays and Broadway-bound musicals. And so we would take classes all day long, but then we were also assigned, each person was assigned to one show to shadow. There was all the professionals, we would put on a show once a week of all the playwrights that were with us, and our group would write one acts, and then we would, get cast in them and perform. And so I was around a lot of working professionals, and I had really decided then that summer to, I had this opportunity. And, my parents, it's the one schooling that I allowed my parents to pay for. My parents invested a lot of money and I needed to make the most of this opportunity. So I was doing things sitting at tables at lunch. Cause I'm worst case scenario, it's awkward. We don't really talk. They get up and leave. I finish my lunch. That's the end of it. Best case scenario, I'm hanging out with a Broadway producer. I'm hanging out with, this critic, and it was really fun. And it was this summer where I was just not letting, recognizing my fear and then not letting it hold me back. And so that was the theme of that summer. And at the end of it, one of the playwrights who had come up to me one time in the cafeteria and was your work last night was really good. You're a really good physical actress. She had written something, it was just a post on Facebook, because I was obviously now stalking her. And it said, fear is the arrow that points you in the direction that you need to go. I'll say that again because I feel like I stumbled through it, but fear is the arrow pointing you in the direction that you need to go. And that really stuck with me. And to the point where, like, I have an arrow tattooed on my wrist now. Yeah. And it's something that has popped up